The great American westward expansion was a time of exploration, opportunity, and adventure. But if you weren't prepared to make the rugged journey across this vast, untamed wilderness, where hostile natives and savage beasts ruled the land, it could become your worst nightmare in an instant. The year is 1823, and the young country was developing a sense of manifest destiny, a belief that American settlers should expand across the continent. But in order to achieve this, they would require safe passage. So General William Ashley, along with Major Andrew Henry, would hire 100 enterprising young men on a journey to ascend the Missouri River with the hope of domesticating the land for future settlers and traders. But anyone venturing out into this uncharted territory would need someone to guide them. A well-seasoned mountain man, somebody who was fierce, strong, and brave. Ashley and Henry found that man when Hugh Glass joined the brigade. Glass was unlike the other men in the expedition, which consisted mostly of young recruits. When sitting around the fire, the young men would whisper to one another, "Who is this man? Where did he come from? How old is he?" Nobody knew the answers, but everyone could sense a still white hell stirring deep within his soul. As the party descended down the river, a hostile tribe of natives ambushed them, forcing General Ashley to order everyone to take cover. But one of the soldiers was left exposed in the line of fire. Without any hesitation, Hugh Glass jumped out, firing his gun as he ran to save the soldier. Ashley ordered the group to return fire, and miraculously, Glass was able to pull the young soldier back to safety. After the attack, Glass realized he had suffered a bullet wound to the hip. Angered, but wanting to make a point to the young man, he said, "My son, brave men are not ashamed to fear, and I've a mind to make a man of you. So here's your first acquaintance with the law." With that, he went off to nurse his wound. From that moment on, he had gained the respect of everyone in the band of explorers. And after his wound healed, he taught them how to track, trap, and kill wild animals. Then, one morning, Hugh Glass would find himself alone while scouting ahead of the party. And it was there, in the quiet woods, where he came upon two bear cubs. As he turned around, a 1,500-pound mother grizzly went on the attack, relentlessly striking, tearing, and shredding the helpless Hugh Glass. Upon hearing his screams, the men quickly rushed to his aid. When they approached Glass, they witnessed something truly horrifying: a severely mauled man, barely alive. Major Henry couldn't risk the whole party staying in this hostile environment, so he ordered John Fitzgerald and Jim Bridger to remain behind with Glass and tend to him through his final days. So Fitzgerald and Bridger waited day after day. Glass was growing increasingly weak, with life fading from him in each passing moment. By week's end, he appeared completely lifeless, so Fitzgerald convinced Bridger that they had to move on and rejoin the company, even though Glass was not yet dead. Fitzgerald knew if they returned to camp without any of Glass's supplies, they would surely be punished, because that would mean he was still alive. So they took his rifle, knife, and boots and left Glass to die.
Let's go!
Old Hugh Glass should have died that day, but somehow he was able to hold on. Nobody knows how long, but at some point, he awoke from his coma. He looked around, but where was his gear? He attempted to stand up, but crumpled to the ground. His leg was broken, and he needed to set it. He let out a cry as he set his leg, but thought to himself, was this like Hugh Glass to whimper? And it was at that moment that Glass made a decision. He had to survive in order to take revenge on the men who deserted him. Without any supplies, and despite being extremely weak from blood loss, he began his agonizing journey by dragging himself using only his forearms. His best chance at survival was nearly 200 miles away at a French trading post, Port Kiowa. In order to survive, he had to feed upon anything that he could find: berries, rattlesnakes, dead animals, day after day after day, driven only by his thirst for revenge. From dragging, he learned to crawl. And 6 weeks in, Glass miraculously pulled himself up, standing for the first time since the attack. But danger still lurked in every direction. One day, Glass was nearly crushed by a stampeding herd of buffalo. And on another, he challenged a pack of wolves for the carcass of a dead animal. But one day, he had a change of fortune. He encountered a Sioux tribesman who offered to clean his wounds. He even helped get Glass closer to his destination by taking him down a river. It had been 3 long months since the encounter with the grizzly, when Glass noticed Fort Kiowa in the distance. Was it a mirage? Somehow, some way, Hugh Glass had survived. By January of 1824, Glass had recovered and was now ready to enact his vengeance upon John Fitzgerald and Jim Bridger. He learned that Major Henry and his men were moving towards the mouth of the Bighorn River. There, Glass was finally able to catch up with his former companions. It was like a ghost appearing in real life. "We all thought you were dead." And that's when Glass turned to find one of the perpetrators, a pale, dumbfounded Jim Bridger. When he confronted him, he couldn't kill the blubbering, apologetic young man. This had been his first expedition, and beneath it all, Glass knew he wasn't to blame. That's when Glass found out that Fitzgerald had joined the army and was at Fort Atkinson in Wisconsin. But if he were to even the score and kill Fitzgerald, the military would have no choice but to hang him. Nevertheless, Glass still traveled to the fort and demanded that the military hand Fitzgerald over to him. They declined, but Glass was able to get his gun back, and people around the camp sympathized with him. And it was at this point that Hugh Glass would end his quest for revenge by forgiving the very men who betrayed him. And because of this act, Jim Bridger would become one of America's greatest mountain men and help keep the legacy of Hugh Glass alive.